Browns falls to Ravens 23-20 in another close game. But what diminished the game the most was definitely the officiating. I'll get into that later. But first, we gotta talk about some of the other things that contributed to this Browns loss. One of them today was Stefanski. Stefanski specifically. And the play calling from him today, I thought it was a little better than last week, but it still wasn't great. He was calling too many passing plays. I felt like we could have ran the ball way more than we did in the game. And second of all, some of the plays, I don't even know what Stefanski's doing. Stefanski's trying to get too fancy, and sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes it'll get you a little bit of yards. And one of the plays, Stefanski threw the challenge flag for no reason at all. And by no reason at all, I mean no reason at all. It was to determine the spot of where Lamar Jackson was sacked. Now, if this were late in the game, then yes, I get it. But it was beginning of the game, and there was no reason to challenge that. So, overall, I kind of don't get Stefanski's strategy here. But moving on to the second thing, and the defense today, okay. It wasn't very good, but it also wasn't very bad today. I consider this probably a good game, though, by the defense, because it was against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. We kept Mark Andrews out of the end zone. The overall defense just played better today. And yeah, now moving on to the third issue, and the thing is, this is what everyone's talking about. Now, I get it. Sometimes referees make bad calls, and it's just kind of like there, just kind of accidental. But some of the calls today were not so good, and by not so good, I mean horrific. One of them was a roughing the passer they didn't call earlier. It was a obvious push after the ball was out of his hands, and that was just, it wasn't called. Whatever. Second call that they blew was a Amari Cooper offensive pass interference downfield. The ball from Brissett was thrown to Amari Cooper. It was caught for a touchdown, but then they called it back. And again, I wish I had the footage of it, but I don't have the footage of it. That was a bad call, and that was a legit bad call, and they knew it. You can tell that certainly was something that wouldn't normally be called if that were any other NFL team. And lastly, the icing on the cake. And this one is the one everyone is talking about. It's the Cade York field goal. The Cade York field goal. It was originally a 55-yarder. However, there was an apparent false start, because apparently one of the Browns' offensive linemen moved. Now, you look at this, and you're one of the other 30 teams besides the Ravens and the Browns. They can definitely see no movement on the offensive line whatsoever. The part that was moving was the defensive line. They jumped first, and then the offensive player jumped. They called that a false start on us. We kicked the field goal, and it's blocked, and it's no good. And that is just a really bad call. And I think the referees knew darn well what they were calling there. Because if that were any other NFL team, they're not calling that. If the teams were switched, they would be calling an offsides on us. Now, that brings me to this other issue. And I'm not sure if many people noticed this, but after the field goal was kicked, the clock kept running to a minute 59. Now, usually when you miss a field goal, the clock stops when the ball hits the ground and the ball is pretty much dead. The ball was kicked, and it missed the wide left. It hit the ground, and the clock kept running until it hit a minute 59. Now, I'm not sure whose fault that is, but the officials gotta go in there and reset the game clock. I've never seen such bad officiating in any Browns game. But today, it was a really, just an overall terrible officiated game. And, you know, usually that's not what you want to see when you have an NFL football game on TV. You want to see entertaining plays, not all this crappy really stupid calls that make no sense. And I hope the NFL is listening to this, because they know darn well that they messed up on purpose. But now let's take a look at some of the game stats here. And passing today, Jacoby Brissett, he didn't have a bad game today. 22 for 27 and 258 yards. And Lamar Jackson today, he only had 9 passes, and he was 9 for 16, 120 yards. And then today, rushing, Nick Chubb, he had 16 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Kareem Hunt, he had 5 carries, only 4 yards, but he had a touchdown. And then Gus Edwards for the Ravens, he had 16 carries, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then receiving wise, Amari Cooper, 3 receptions for 74 yards, and Duvernay, 2 receptions for 42 yards, and also Lamar Jackson, he had 59 yards rushing. Those are your game stats. And now take a look at the box score here. First downs wise, Browns 18-17 on that. Total plays, Browns ran 7 less plays, 56-63. Total yards, Browns overall had more. Total drives, they were equal. Yards per play, Browns averaged 2 more yards per play than the Ravens. Passing wise, we had way more yardage than the Ravens did, 223-94. Rushing wise, the Ravens had more today, 113-160. Red zone wise, both teams were 2 for 4. Penalties wise, Browns were 6 penalties, 45 yards. Ravens 3 for 53. Turnovers wise, Browns had 2. The Ravens had 1. Defensive special team touchdowns, nothing happened there, and the Ravens had the ball for more time. Now will bring us to our injury report. And continuing, Njoku went out wearing a walking boot and crutches, and he is currently listed as questionable. Also, Jacob Phillips is also questionable. He left the game. Anthony Schwartz is still out, and Denzel Ward is still out. Whitell is still out, and Chris Hubbard is out. So definitely lots of injuries for the Browns right now, and yeah, that will bring us to next week's game. It will be Cleveland Browns at home versus the Cincinnati Bengals Halloween night, and this is Monday Night Football, so it's going to be on a Monday instead of a Sunday. Browns are 2-5, Bengals are 4-3. Bengals are going to take this one, and the Bengals overall are just better than the Browns, so that's my reasoning on that. But that's going to do it for the post game. Browns fall to the Ravens 23-20. We'll see you next week on the Bengals-Browns game on Halloween night.